Brought to you by Penguin.
May I have your attention, please? Written and read by James Corden. I've always thought that the first few lines of any book would be the hardest to write. Where do I start? How do I begin to tell you, someone I don't know, someone I've more than likely never met, about my life? My story. How do I do this? I'm only 32, and if I'm being completely honest, at least 2 of those 32 years were spent playing PlayStation and eating Crunchy Nut cornflakes. I could try and be clever and start in the middle and jump back and forth in time, like The Social Network, though that jump between various courtrooms and depositions to Harvard University and the creation of a website that changed the way we socially interact. Mine would jump from my parents' front room to my bedroom, and all that would have happened in between is that I've grabbed a bag of quavers. I've just realised you may not have actually purchased this book and are doing what I do when buying a book and reading the first page to see if you like it. I'm guessing so far you're not overly impressed. If this is the case, let me start by saying that you look and indeed smell incredible today. Are those new shoes? No? Newish? Well, they're a triumph. They really suit you. I tell you what, don't look now, but as you're reading this, everyone around you in the shop is checking you out and saying how hot you are. Seriously, there's something about you holding this book that really brings the best out in you. Now I come to mention it, you look slimmer holding this book. The truth is, my head's a little all over the place today. Yesterday was Tuesday the 22nd of March, and it's a day that will be etched in my memory for as long as I live. It was the day I became a father. My son weighed in at 7 pounds 8 ounces, and it's by far the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. He came a week early, and although that's brilliant, this was supposed to be my big week for writing this book, for really getting stuck in. So, with a heavy heart, I've left him and his mother sleeping peacefully at the hospital. There he lay, nestled in his mother's arms, his head pressed to her chest, and as I looked back at him, I wondered what he might remember as his earliest memory. I remember mine clearly. I was 4 years old, and it was so definitive it would shape the rest of my life. In a few days' time, my family will be coming home from the hospital, and a new phase of life will begin. A new chapter. Experiences I can't even begin to contemplate. It feels like the right time to take stock of my old life, and that first memory feels like the right place to begin. I have 2 sisters, Andrea, who's 3 years older than me, and Ruth, who's 4 years younger. My mum, Margaret, is a social worker, and my dad, Malcolm, used to be a musician in the Royal Air Force, but is now a Christian book salesman. I know, it's not the most straightforward career path, from being exceptionally good at saxophone, clarinet, flute and drums, travelling the world with the Air Force, and then suddenly selling the Bible and Christian worship CDs to little shops in the southeast. But the church and Christianity were always a big part of my life growing up, even before Dad changed jobs. I say the church, but to be more precise, it was the Salvation Army, and it's here, at the Salvation Army in High Wycombe, where my first memory takes place. It was my younger sister Ruth's christening. Our family were very involved in all aspects of church life. Mum was in the songsters, which is basically the choir. Dad played in the brass band, basically the, brass band, and both wore the Salvation Army uniform, a hideous black suit that looked a bit like a policeman's uniform. It was a Sunday morning service, and the Salvation Army officer, basically the vicar, or priest, had been talking for a couple of minutes when he asked our whole family to join him on the platform. I walked up, holding Mum's hand, and approached the altar where he was speaking. Dad handed Ruth over to the vicar, and as a family we formed a semicircle around him. Except, because of the configuration of the altar and where we were standing, it meant I couldn't see Ruth being blessed at all. So the vicar grabbed a chair and said, "Come on, James, come and stand on here so you can see." I crawled up onto my knees, and then up onto my feet so that I was standing, and what I saw then, at that moment, changed something inside me forever. This may sound incredibly dramatic and hard for you to believe, for a memory to be this vivid or important at such a young age, but I promise you, I remember this as if it was yesterday. I stood on the chair and looked out towards the congregation and saw row after row of people staring back at me. There were probably about 40 or 50 people in the congregation that day, but to my 4-year-old self it looked like a sea of millions. The whole point of me being on the chair was to see Ruth being blessed and the devil being renounced from her soul. But from the moment I saw people looking at me, I don't think I once looked at Ruth or what was happening on the platform, because in my eyes this was no longer a platform.
Sample complete.
Ready to continue?